Hello and welcome to our fireside chat, which is on the topic of the digital euro. So I'm Rachel Mole. I'm an independent advisor and consultant from the UK. I work across technology and accessibility in many different sectors. And the one that is definitely moving the most at the moment is the financial sector. And I'm joined here today for a conversation with Petja. Petja, could you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you, Rachel. My name is Petja Nederlander. I'm director at the Austrian Central Bank, and I'm responsible for payments, financial literacy, and risk management.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So the euro system is preparing for the introduction of a new form of money, the digital euro. That's what we're here to discuss.
Right.
Digital form of cash to complement cash, not replace it. That is definitely the understatement of the century. It also aims to address the barriers that we see in accessing digital payments through inclusion by design, fundamentally, with key tenets such as it's usable without a bank account, accessible to use through solutions like payment cards, and free of charge for basic use. So, Petja, the digital euro is described as a public form of money that must ensure no one is left behind. What does the concept of no one left behind mean to you in practical terms?
Well, that means really no one, because we do see as a central bank that we all are engaging in different way of digital transactions. So everybody of us buys digitally. Digital become part of our life. We are kind of more and more prompt to digital mean of payments, of digitalization, of digital purchases. Even we give to each other money, mostly in digital form. And here we aim that we address everybody. So we don't want to have an inclusion term just in a narrow sense, as most academia do, but we would like to see everybody based on a broad sense and make sure that every citizen in the euro area is able to pay anywhere, every time, without restrictions and free of charge.
That is genuinely a fantastic aim, and I think one of the key tenets of that is ensuring that this remains a public form of money and not a private one. Could you explain actually why that is so important and how that's going to help?
Right. Well, we see that private sector obviously aims at certain audience, which is rightful so. But we are a public institution, and for us it's important that the broader population has access to cash. That comes from the cash in circulation, as you mentioned. And we are definitely willing to give the citizens the ability to pay with something which is legal tender, which is accepted by every merchant in any situation, also in the digital space, as you do with cash. And we definitely want to complement cash where cash is not reaching out today, and that's in the digital sphere. If you want to imagine that, the public money is well positioned as a baseline, as an absolute certainty that if you want to do something or to have access to your money, you can always convert it to cash and buy goods and services. Since in the digital sphere, cash is not anymore applicable, because you cannot give your banknote to an in-app payment, or you cannot give your banknote to an Amazon purchase. There we need certain certainty from the sovereign, from the state, and from the central bank as well. And that's the digital euro. It will be anchored in the law, but also it will be obligatory to the merchants, and it will also be provided by public institutions everywhere in the euro area, so everybody has the certainty. If I don't have any other mean, I go with that one.
Fantastic. So this work is informed by lived experience, and I was really happy to hear actually that the Austrian National Bank established a financial inclusion forum before even progressing with the development of the digital euro. Firstly, why was this so important? And secondly, how did you ensure that actually the lived experience was meaningfully captured and actually shaped the outcomes rather than just being, the symbolic tick box?
right? Well, first of all, we just recognized when starting engaging with that, we said, oh, well, we want to be by everybody. And then we said, but who are everybody? And we started with the terms of vulnerable people. And then we came across the fact that the vulnerable people are most probably not vulnerable. And there are people who have needs beyond just people with disabilities. And so we have elderly people, people in the rural areas, people with not so easiness of reading, people who have issues with sensoric and so on. So we said, okay, we need to put that broader. And in that moment, we said, okay, but we cannot talk about the people without talking with the people. So we decided to cooperate with more than 35 organizations who represent the people with needs. And after that, we also decided to encounter the people with needs with dignity and involve them in a co-creation approach so we really can get those valuable examples which help us to design a meaningful solution. So today we go one step beyond and we said we would like to have a study with more than 1,000 participants from those groups of people with needs, and we would like to understand in which exact cases they feel restricted or they feel their needs. So we don't want just to talk about the numbers, but we want to come to the experiences and from that to get to the actionable evidence, so we call that. And hopefully this helps us in the process.
Yeah. So some of the areas that the forum have identified as being a potential barrier are the availability, the accessibility, usability, and also financial education. All of these are kind of the key success factors that will make or break how well the digital euro performs. To challenge a little bit, what of those areas do you see as being the most difficult or challenging to actually develop solutions for?
Well, let me answer twofold. The one thing is about the functions or the features. What we saw is that there is no one-fits-all solution because you have so many different needs which have to be addressed. So once we go in the design, we really want to see what works for which kind of need and how this contributes to the design of digital euro as such, so that also other groups can benefit of this. This is the one. So the availability or accessibility is very important, but that's kind of homework. The real challenge is the to bring it to the field, the accessibility broadly and the financial education, because you need to put it into the hands of the ones who need it. Imagine people who come from abroad or people without housing. You really need to find the right people so that they understand it and talk to them in a proper way. To establish service offices or service places, service points where those people can feel welcomed, they can get advice, can get explanation and articulation of how exactly it works, because even if it is super easy, still you have questions. So I think the real challenge is to have this place. The European legislation says there should be a public solution or public service point for it. But we have to evaluate which one, how it should look like, how that should transport the message, how should be established correctly.
I certainly say, from experience of listening to consumers, one of the biggest fears is actually that this is going to replace cash, where that's truly not the case. And you do state that cash must remain available, and that true inclusion, it comes from that choice. How do you see that this relationship happening, in practice? How does cash still sit aside a digital euro?
Well, there are three aspects here. The first one is the availability of cash. So you have to ensure that the cash is available in the broader region, so in the rural areas as well, in the distant areas as well. And here we, as the Central Bank of Austria, are very much committed to establish ATMs where they are disappearing and where they're needed, so the population have the certainty there is access to cash whenever needed. The second thing is about that you have to make it understandable and easy both to use cash but also to use the digital euro. So they should be kind of complementing each other truly. Just to give an example, there are a lot of people in care in Austria because of the aging society, and they will be very well and living on their own, but they will need kind of support for mobility reasons. For somebody going to buy groceries, bringing that to them. Today, that's done with cash, which is fairly well positioned. But people sometimes feel untrusted. They feel like, oh, well, there is some fishy. I would like really to have access or to have a control about what's happening. I want the person who takes care about me to do exactly what they want. And giving your PIN for your bank card, that's not the right solution, or asking your relatives to bring cash for you. So you basically would love to have both, to have cash for the needs you want to cover with that, but also to have access to a digital form of cash which you can withdraw and give to somebody immediately if you need so. And the third aspect is, of course, that digital euro and cash have to be accepted by everybody. And that's about the legal tender, which we aim to strengthen the legal tender of cash exactly as the legal tender of digital euro.
Great, thank you. You've touched on it a few times, the idea of a vulnerable customer.
Right.
Certainly in the UK, that is defined by legislation, and it's protected characteristics. So, firstly, how do you define a vulnerable user? And you've already given one kind of case study of how this new digital euro will support vulnerable users, but how do you see it playing out actually in access across the board?
Well, we started with the narrow definition, as I said. So similarly as in academia, so we started with the definition, say, okay, well, the people who have disabilities or people who are having low literacy or no mobility or stuff like that. But slowly we figured out that it's actually a little bit of a very narrow approach. So we broadened that up. Today we use a definition of almost 16 different categories. And we said, okay, let's see who are the groups who have issues today with digital means of payments, in terms that they are either not available or not cheap enough so that they can use them, or they're as complex that the people don't feel comfortable using them by themselves. Because if I have a lot of cards and mobile payment solutions, but still I feel uncomfortable and need my relatives to help me doing transactions, that's not independent and a way on my own to deal with that. So, and starting from that definition, we now expand that towards cases where we say, okay, that's fine. That's the definition. Who are the groups? We want then to put a layer in which cases those groups are really facing issues, and in which cases they really have needs to be covered or which are not covered today. And we hope by that to have a meaningful space of, let's say, vulnerable people, or we say people with needs, and then situation where those needs are relevant, and then we can address them appropriately.
Great. So in our final minute then, to kind of bring this conversation to a close, what would you say is the biggest barrier, or what's next that you need to be working on to make this actually a reality?
Well, we need to co-create with the people. So we really want to touch the ground with the people with needs and design proper solutions for them. But we also need to issue clear recommendations and design options for the public service points who have to service that group of people who are really then in the process needs to take over and have a continuous feedback what needs to be improved further.
Great. Thank you so much. This has been so interesting, and I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation offline as well. And thank you, everybody, for watching along. Please do reach out on LinkedIn. I'm sure we'd both be very happy to hear from you. Thank you very much.
thank you for the conversation.